Welcome to the Women's Issues Forum. This is our fourth in a series of 5 forums that focus on the topic of empowerment. Our voices shall be heard. Today we will talk about women's financial empowerment. I am Mary Lynn Parker, and this forum is a community outreach project of the Manatee County branch of the American Association of University Women. Currently, women earn on the average about 75 cents for every dollar that men earn. To make the point, I've suggested to legislators who are considering pay equity issues that they learn or teach the real lesson when giving monetary gifts to their children and grandchildren. For every dollar they give their boy child, they should give the girl child 75 cents. When the girl complains, they should just tell her to get used to it, that that's the way things are. In addition, proposals to raise the Social Security retirement age or cut benefits would disproportionately harm women. Women receive less pay and live longer on average than men do. More than 43% of women over 65 would be living below the poverty line without Social Security. Those numbers increase for a woman of color or unmarried women. There are many more elderly women living in poverty than elderly men. How should a woman prepare for her financial security? What can an older woman do to prevent living in poverty as she ages? And what are the best practices that ensure financial empowerment for women? With me today are 4 community members who can provide advice, resources, and information to help women empower themselves for a more secure financial future. Join me in welcoming our panel members. Ina Baden, owner of Pamasola Appraisals and Sales. Ina is a small business owner and mother of 2 adult daughters. Diane Perry is the new options coordinator for the Manatee Technical Institute. Dr. Perry provides a variety of services to displaced homemakers. Susan Mosley is the owner of Mosley Investment Management Incorporated, and she is a registered investment advisor and a retirement income specialist. Jacqueline D'Alessio is AAUW's Florida newsletter editor. Jackie brings a wealth of information based on the in-depth research conducted by the National American Association of University Women. To begin, I invite each of you to tell us a little about yourself and your organization and briefly describe ways that you help women empower themselves financially. Susan, would you start?
Yes, I'm president and founder of Mosley Investment Management. I have 3 children. I've been married for 32 years. I have 2 daughters, twin daughters that are 29 years old, so I've spent much time talking to them about financial security. And I opened my firm 22 years ago with the intent of providing a conflict-free place for people to get advice on preparing for retirement. So women have been at the focus point of my career, and I've spent much of my time counseling them.
Fantastic. We'll learn so much from you today, and I really appreciate your being with us.
Thank you.
Dr. Perry?
Yes, I'm the coordinator of the New Options program. We provide services to people ages 35 and older. Our population is primarily women. However, on occasion, we do provide services to men who meet the criteria. They also have to be unemployed or not earning a self-sufficient wage. Most of our clients are widowed or divorced, married to a disabled spouse. Some of them have never been married and receive federal assistance. We help them get training for a career, and we also help with resumes, job placement, and other services that they may need. We provide financial management workshops, for example, and other life skills services.
What a wonderful local resource you are. Ina, what advice do you have? Give us a little bit of information about your background.
Well, I graduated with a degree in social work and worked with a lot of the less fortunate for about 8 years and learned what situations some of the women were in or were left in. I own Pamasola Appraisals and Sales. It's a small business. I do employ women on a part-time basis as well as a couple of men. and I've owned my own business since 1981. And I also have always been interested in being a very independent woman because my mother was widowed at 27 with a 2-year-old child, and she always taught me throughout my life, make sure that you can take care of yourself.
Great. Jackie?
I am a member of 2 committees on the association level. One of them is called the Leadership Corps. The other is called the Branch Resource Program Committee. And with both of those committees, I am attuned to what is happening at the National Association. As far as financial empowerment is concerned, AAUW is strongly in favor of empowering women so that they can take charge of their financial matters. In relation to that, as a member of the Branch Program Committee, the committee has developed several programs that we can put out to our branches throughout the country, which deal with making women financially aware. One of those programs has to do with equity for, one of the programs has to do with equity for women. Another one is called Financially Fit for Life.
Great. Well, we'll enjoy hearing more about both of those as we go through our program this afternoon. So we've touched a little bit on it, but let's hear more reasons or other ways of describing why is it important for women to be financially empowered? Anyone?
Well, I believe it's important that they're financially empowered from some of the evidence that you gave in the beginning of your talk, which is that women generally live longer than men. And what we're seeing currently in the numbers is that they will, currently we have to plan for them living into their mid-90s.
Good.
Yeah, absolutely. But in order to do that, and in order to sustain themselves, they have to be prepared. And the only way to prepare is through education. So that's #1 priority as far as I'm concerned.
Now, when you say education, you mean getting a higher degree?
Not necessarily, not at all, as a matter of fact. There's so much information out there on a regular basis that is provided through the library system, through our resources here on the panel. Everyone has that capability to educate themselves. They just have to get out and do it.
Great. Other reasons why it's important for women to be financially empowered?
Often a spouse will become disabled or die, and the woman and the children are left, and the woman's only been a housewife, I shouldn't say only, but has been a housewife and has never been in the workplace. So they're kind of left in the air. They have no insurance, they have no bank account or no means of supporting themselves and their children long term. So they need to get some work skills. They need to understand that the skills that they used in managing the home are transferable to the workplace. And that's one of the other things that we do at New Options is help them to see that. And a year, excuse me, a year of training, for example, at a vocational center would give them excellent job skills to be able to support themselves and their children.
One of the programs that AAUW has on a national level that it likes its branches to be aware of does sort of follow along with that, because what we want to do is make women aware of these opportunities, and therefore a lot of the branch programs are directed toward the communities, similar to what Manatee County is doing today in having this forum. It is something that is being brought from AAUW and the branch out to the members of the community.
Super. So what kind of challenges do women face as we attempt to secure a promising future financially?
I think one of the challenges is the way women think in general about money. I think they're taught early on that maybe being too interested in money isn't appropriate, isn't necessarily the thing to do. But a change in attitude has to come about, and they have to realize that there's a difference between being independent and being greedy. And it's a psychological point that has to be reconciled. And women have to embrace the fact that there has to be a minimum amount of financial security for them to be an independent person, and they need to figure out how to do that.
What
That's
other
interesting.
challenges? Go ahead. Go ahead,
That's
Jackie.
interesting because AAUW does have a program called Start Smart, and the purpose of that program is to work with young women and tell them give them the tools to negotiate salaries and benefits when they first start working. And obviously, if their salaries when they first start working are higher as they go on, their salaries are going to be higher, which would get out of the problems of women in poverty as they go older.
Negotiation skills are something that women tend not to have. So this is an excellent program. I think another thing that needs to start young, and our society promotes women being dependent on a husband. And a man is not a financial plan. And we need to educate our young women that they need to be independent financially as well, whether they're married or not.
Right.
Yeah, I've always felt that a woman should have her own money. I don't care whether you're a housewife and you're given an allowance to buy groceries or whatever, you need to save something back that is yours so that in case something does happen, then you have a resource to fall back on. Also, I feel that women need to be, you know, the older women particularly would just sign whatever, you know, the husband put in front of them to obligate themselves for financial debt or whatever. But I think women need to be made aware of what they should sign and what they should not, and that they need to have their own funds.
And
in their own name.
Right, and they definitely should know what they're signing.
That's right.
Because that goes back to Susan's point about education. We need to know what these different ways of accumulating money as well as debt and interest and all those things mean as women.
Mary Lynn, one of the things I found in working with the women that I work with is there seems to be a fear of banks and financial management, financial advisors. We don't make enough money to do that, or they're just afraid of that whole arena of finances. And that's one of the things we try to assist them with. You know, we call it financial literacy, which I think AAUW does as well.
Yes.
And there are a lot of really good financial literacy programs out now for people. And it's also really good to see a lot of women in the financial management careers these days.
Well, this is a good time then to move to the notion of, are there some discipline steps, and what are they that women should take in order to ensure their financial future?
I think you've hit the nail on the head, is discipline. And I'd like to challenge the women that are listening to this to equate financial responsibility with the responsibility that they take on for their own personal health. We as women, we tend to focus, it's all about focus, but for success in anything that we do, but we focus on our health. We know that we're supposed to have our mammograms annually, and we know that we're supposed to have various health exams on a regular basis. Going and having our teeth checked, you know, at certain times encourages better dental health. We all can relate to that. But so many times, women don't like to think about the financial side. And what I want to encourage them to consider is that the same kind of discipline where you're thinking about, well, you know, the annual mammogram. Think about if you do nothing but have your annual financial exam. That will get you so far down the road for working on that disciplined focus on getting you where you need to be financially. I have always, at our firm, we like to sit down every quarter. Every 3 months, we like to sit down, see where we are, see how the economy is affecting things, and that leads to another point of women tend to be, whether we want to consider that or not, we tend to be more emotional animals than men. And so the ups and downs that we experience in the economy really affect our psychological health as well. And so doing that kind of disciplined approach where you're sitting down and looking at things and really not putting it off empowers you. Psychologically, it makes you feel more in control of your life. And I challenge everyone out there to really focus and put a plan together that makes sense on an annual basis and on a quarterly basis.
What types of things would you examine during that?
Where you're spending your money, what things are costing more now than they were, and if you don't have any idea of how much you're going to need to take care of yourself personally during your retirement, expect that your husband isn't going to be there, because most likely, one way or the other, you will be around by yourself. The numbers are in the high 80s that you will die alone, and you have to plan for that period of time in your life. So that would be the very first step, I would say, is to figure out, sit down with someone and figure out how much money is it going to be, including Social Security income and so forth, to come up with that monthly check that you're going to need.
Other suggestions?
Along that line is they can get a free annual credit report now once a year. And that's very important to know what your credit rating is. And you should have a credit rating separate from your spouse, not combined with your spouse. Again, back to Ina's point of having your own money and being independent.
Any other suggestions? And disciplined steps to take to ensure our future? Are there different things we should do as a younger woman as opposed to being an older woman who's just starting to think about it? I mean, what advice would Ina and I be giving to our 20, 30-something daughters that might be different than what we would be giving to a 65 or 70-year-old woman?
Well, you have to start somewhere. I've told my girls that you have to be prepared to be alone whether you're young or whether you're old, and you have to start working toward that.
It's never too late to start saving, for example. You know, put away 10% if you can. If you can put away more in a savings account, do that. If you're working, find out what the pension plan and retirement plans are where you work. And as soon as you start working, for the young woman, get involved with that. For the older woman, well, maybe that's appropriate for you too. Maybe there's something you can do there. And you know, just educate yourself as to what's available for you, no matter what age.
I think establishing a lifestyle discipline early in your life is critical. When I sit down, it's very fascinating to me to sit down with different clients, women clients that come in that are 55, 60 years old. And those clients, she might have been a school teacher, which is, in the scheme of things, an average income over the years. But the school teachers actually have learned, in general, to discipline themselves through regular deposits into a retirement account, to where many of them are in very good shape at this point, versus nurses, for example. Many nurses that work for doctors are in terrible shape because there aren't significant retirement accounts to access. So, but the lifestyle is the theme throughout. It's if you can get yourself, as you suggested, to put 10% away early on, you're going to be so much further along the road, down the path, because you will have gotten used to that lifestyle, that money coming out before you get it in your pocket to spend.
And it seems today, with all of the credit crisis and so many of the young people who have borrowed a lot of money to live in a different lifestyle than they might really should have, what advice do we have for them that have kind of overextended themselves?
They better go back to square one.
And what would that square one be?
Oh,
Pay it off.
yeah, either pay it off if you can, or you just have got to start all over again. And there's a lot of young people that are just walking away from this lifestyle that they thought that they could afford, and they can't. And the sooner you can recognize that, the better off you are.
Right. So what ways can women acquire wealth?
Work.
Hard work. Hard work. Don't think it's going to come easy. It always comes with a price. And
I do think women have to work harder
for it.
than men do.
And also, girls should study to go into some of the STEM fields, which would be the science and the technology, jobs where they are going to be able to gain a greater starting pay than they would as far as nursing or teaching or something like that is concerned.
one of the things that I found interesting was looking at some of the labor statistics during this most recent downturn in our high unemployment rate. It reminds me of looking at some of the labor statistics back in World War II. The women held their jobs much better in this downturn than the men did. And I think that we have to be prepared. The other thing that we tend to be as women are the caregivers, the people that end up being there for our children, for our extended family, and in many cases right now being the sole breadwinner in a family. So that type of education, the more education the better, obviously.
Yeah.
Well, do you think that that's because the women are paid less money is why they hold on to their job?
I think that there are a lot of reasons that go into that statistic. I think that one of the biggest reasons that women are paid less is that we don't stand up for ourselves enough. Back to what you were talking about, the negotiating factor. There's a great study out from Harvard that has shown that it's because of who we are and how we think, really, as women about money, that we have a hard time negotiating and standing up for ourselves. We don't want to be considered the greedy person or the witch. So it's very difficult for us. But once we learn, if anyone wants to go online and research this study through Harvard on behavioral finance with women, it's a fascinating study because it shows that if you understand that you're not being impolite by standing up for yourself and asking for what you're worth, or that you want a particular price on a car that you're negotiating for, or that you're meeting, as you said earlier, women don't feel comfortable going in and talking to financial people. A big part of that is that their insecurity about feeling greedy, or they just feel insecure about money. And they have to know that no one's going to stand up for them but themselves. They have to feel confident.
We need more assertiveness training in finances as well as everything else, because it all carries over.
And I think that's why AAUW has really gotten behind the Start Smart workshop, because that is designed to do, to make the women stand up for themselves and say, this is what I am worth, and not to take less than that.
That's wonderful.
What other last final words would you give to women in terms of them securing a financial future? Some final comments.
A career, education, get some work skills so you can become employable in a long-term career. And maybe the sky is not where you reach right now, but you can start maybe as a CNA or a nurse and work up to that RN that makes the big money. So there are career ladders, in other words. But definitely get an education.
I do think you have to plan, and along with the education, make a plan so that you may have money in your own name things in your own name and plan for your financial future?
Focus. I think writing down that plan and keeping the discipline to refocus every quarter, at least once a year, looking at your long-term goals, having them written down. It's been proven that if you, a goal is a dream with a time limit, and you have to give yourself time limits. You have to give it structure, and you have to look into the future. And I would bring it back to personal responsibility. I think women have to stand up and say to themselves, I am responsible for my personal future and the success of my personal future, and not depend on anyone else for that to happen.
Great.
And I think we have to encourage women to take part in those programs which are going to help them to gain that financial ability.
I want to thank our panelists today for a stimulating and informative forum on women's financial empowerment. Today we learned that there are a variety of means and resources to assist women in securing their financial future. We encourage you to review all of the resources in our community that are available to you, including those described by our panel today. In spite of the fact that nationally and on the average, women are more educated and more women are working continuously outside the home, this additional effort is not resulting in equity in pay for women. The lack of pay equity continues to be at the root of the challenges faced by women to empower themselves financially. It is important that we continually work with our legislators to pass laws that will ensure pay fairness and financial security for women. If you would like more information about any of our panelists, send an email to manateeaauw@hotmail.com. We'd love to hear from you. The next forum in our series will focus on women's empowerment regarding sexual and domestic violence. Please let us know what concerns, comments, and suggestions you have about this women's issue. Contact us at our email address. And thank you for being with us.